In today's lesson, we're going to do some more problem solving with proportion problems. So to get started, our first problem says Dwayne has 2.5 times as many model airplanes as Chen. Chen has 15 model airplanes. So the first thing we need to figure out is what simplified whole number ratio expresses the relationship that Dwayne has 2.5 times as many model airplanes as Chen. So it wants a whole number simplified ratio. So the 2.5 over 1 doesn't work because 2.5 is a decimal, it's not a whole number. Now because my bottom number is 1, I can't divide by anything because if I divide 1, I'm going to make 1 a fraction or a decimal, and then that wouldn't be a whole number. So what I'm going to do is just times that by 2. If I take 1 times 2, that gives me 2. Now whatever I do to one of them, I have to do to the other one. So I'm also going to take the 2.5 times 2, and 2.5 times 2 is 5. Okay, and that ends up being our simplest whole number ratio. Okay, 5 to 2. So now it says let X represent the actual number of model airplanes Chen has. What ratio represents Dwayne's actual model airplanes to Chen's actual model airplanes? Okay. Well, so we'll use D for Dwayne and C for Chen. Well, we know that Dwayne has 15. Okay, because it tells us right here that Dwayne has 15 model airplanes. And all it tells us about Chen is that he has X model airplanes. So 15 over X would be my ratio for Dwayne's actual model airplanes to Chen's actual model airplanes. So the next part says write an equation showing write an equation showing that the ratios 15 to X and 5 to 2 are equal. Okay, so I'm going to have 15 over X equal 5 over 2. So that would be my ratio showing that Dwayne's to Chen's actual model airplanes is equal. Now what we could do is go ahead and solve that because I can do my cross multiplication here. I can take my 15 times 2, and that's going to equal my X times 5 or 5 times X, which is 5X. 15 times 2 is 30. So I just need to divide by 5. 30 divided by 5 is 6. So 6 equals X. So Chen would have 6 model airplanes. Okay, moving on here. So here's an example of what we just did. We came up with the 6 for Chen. This is how they did it using ratio tables. And it also goes on to explain there's bar diagrams and equations that we can use to solve proportion problems as well. We are primarily going to focus on the equations because they work well every time. Okay. This just gives an example of what a bar diagram is. We are not going to really worry about the bar diagram. Like I said, we're going to focus on writing the equations. So we can kind of just ignore that. Here is what we've been doing is using the equation, setting up a proportion, and then solving the equation. Okay, now when we look at this example is doing a little more than what we usually do. So if you look down here, we do this. We express the ratios as fractions and set them equal to one another. Okay? Now, we are not going to worry about this step. And we are not going to worry about this step. And we are not going to worry about this step. Okay? Again, what we do is we take the 15 times 2, we cross multiply 15 times 2 to get the 30, and we cross multiply the 5 and the x to get the 5x. And then we just divide by 5, and that's how we get our 6. Okay, so we're going to focus on the equation part there. Okay, first problem here. First set of problems. It wants you to solve problems 1 and 2 using these 3 solution methods, a ratio table. We'll work with the table a little bit. The bar diagram we are not going to worry about, and solving the equation, again, that's going to be our primary focus. Okay, so number 1, it says Lakeside City Hospital has a rule stating that the ratio of the nurses to patients must be as close as possible to 1 to 12. So each nurse should only have about 12 patients. The hospital is expanding and will have space for 672 patients. How many nurses will the hospital need? Okay. Well, if I look at my table here and what I already know 1 nurse to 12 patients, and I know that we want to have 672 patients. Well, you could do some stuff and get some more values in your table, or we could just go to the equation. Okay. So we're doing nurses over patients. And I know that for every 1 nurse, there should be about 12 patients. Now what I also know is they're going to have space for 672 patients. Okay? Patients is on the bottom, so that 672 has to go on the bottom of this other ratio. Now to solve this, I'm looking for, I can use n for nurses here, you could just use x, it really doesn't matter. But if I take 1 times 672, well, that's going to equal 672. 12 times n is going to be 12n. Now I just have to divide by 12 on both sides here, and 672 divided by 12 ends up being 56. My 12s cancel, and I get n. So for nurses, they would need 56 nurses if they're going to have 672 patients. Okay, going on to number 2. Dwayne's brother Daryl and 2 of his friends, Carla and Anthony, deliver newspapers and earn tips. The total dollars in tips for Daryl to Carla to Anthony are in a ratio of 2 to 5 to 11. Suppose Daryl earns $20.80 in tips. How much do Carla and Anthony earn? Okay, now don't let the fact that this ratio has 3 numbers in it fool you here. When we organize it in a table with Daryl, Carla, and Anthony here, again, the 2 goes with Daryl, the 5 goes with Carla, the 11 goes with Anthony. And we know that Daryl actually did get $20.80 in tips. So we just want to figure out how much Carla and Anthony got. So for Carla, again, I know that Daryl, so if I take Daryl over Carla, I know that that ratio is 2 over 5. And I know that Daryl actually got $20.80. And I want to figure out what Carla got. Well, that would be down here. So again, cross multiply. 2 times C is 2C. That's got to equal 5 times $20.80, which comes out to 104. Divide by 2. And Carla ends up getting $52 in tips. So we can fill in Carla here was 52. All right, now for Anthony, now I'm still going to use Daryl here. So I'm going to write this ratio. I'm going to take Daryl's information over Anthony's information. Again, Daryl made $2 in tips for every 11 that Anthony made. And I know that Daryl made $20.80 in tips. Okay, I need to figure out how much Anthony's going to make. So again, cross multiply. 2 times A is 2A. That's going to equal 11 times $20.80, which comes out to $228.80. I need to divide that by 2. And I get A, my 2's cancel, I get A equals $114.40. Okay? Now, if you need to kind of pause there and go back and take a look at that, again, feel free to do that. Pause and go back if you need to make it clear for you. Okay, moving on. Number 3 just says, compare with somebody else. So if you want to take some time and talk with somebody else about how they're doing it, go ahead and do that. Number 4 says, explain the similarities and differences among the 3 methods of solving problems with proportional ratios. Which method do you prefer and why? Okay. Now, maybe you prefer tables. For me, I'm going to put equations. Okay, and the reason I like equations is because it's easier and it's faster to do it this way, and it also works every time. Okay, so to finish up here, to close this out, it says describe the benefits and drawbacks of each of the 3 methods for solving ratio problems. We're just going to worry about tables and the equations. We're not going to worry about the bar diagrams there. But for a table, okay, if we look at a table, it's a nice visual, but can be more work. Okay, and then if we look at an equation, okay, that it's quicker, but it's also easy to make a mistake. So there we go. Once you have your notes completed here, you can bring them to me. I'll check them and give you your homework sheet. Good luck.